Hi guys, welcome to As Simple as Possible. In this video, we are going to revise Chapter 7, Strategic Performance Measures in Private Sector. We know that the overall measure of whether shareholders' wealth has increased is total shareholder return. It comprises of two things, dividend yield and capital gain or loss. Dividend yield is calculated as dividend per share divided by P0, which is price at the start of the year, and similarly capital gain or loss divided by P0. Next topic is financial ratio analysis. We know that the changes in the value of a company's shares is influenced by current and forecast financial position, and financial ratio analysis helps us to know that. Where we have different kinds of financial ratios which include broad categories as profitability, liquidity, gearing, investor. Profitability tells us how well a company performs with given asset base. Liquidity tells us the short-term financial position. Profitable companies also fail due to liquidity issues. Gearing involves measure of financial risk and investor involves share value and dividends. Next topic that we have is return on capital employed or return on investment. It indicates productivity of capital employed. The formula is profit before interest and tax divided by average capital employed into 100. We know what is profit before interest and tax. Now how to calculate average capital employed? This is the capital employed at the start of the year plus capital employed at the end of the year, the average of both. And what is average capital? What is capital employed? Capital employed can be calculated on two methods. One is the asset side and the other one is the equity side. If we use the asset side method, it would be total assets minus current liabilities, and if we use the equity side method, it would be share capital plus the long-term debt. If we assess a company or unit's performance using this ratio, it may discourage investment because the more we increase capital, the return on that capital falls, the profit is the same. Hence, it leads to an important criticism of this ratio, that this ratio leads to a short-term decision making, when in fact we should think from a longer-term perspective because capital is very important for an entity to grow. Next, what we have is advantages and disadvantages of financial ratio analysis. We know the disadvantage is that it mainly looks on the quantitative factors where qualitative factor is also important and it has a short-term focus. Advantage is that it allows comparison within itself, like among the different units, over time and between different companies. So this is the advantage. Next topic that we have is appropriate benchmark. As we discussed above, benchmark is over time we compare with other companies and we set an internal target and we compare ourselves with that target. So that is the appropriate benchmark for ratio analysis. Next we will discuss other financial performance measures. The first of it is residual income. Residual income is a measure of a company's profit after reducing an imputed cost of capital. It includes PBIT minus imputed cost of capital multiplied by capital employed. Imputed cost of capital is WACC. The fact that you can apply different cost of capital to units with different risk characteristics makes residual income more flexible than return on capital employed, but it produces an absolute value rather than a percentage. Hence, it cannot be used to compare organizations of different sizes. If we are given a zero residual income, it means that the profit before interest and tax covers return on expected capital employed. If we are given a positive residual income, it means good performance. If we are given a negative residual income, it means poor performance. Next topic that we have is EBITDA, earning before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. We know that EBITDA is very popular, but what is the reason that it is popular? Because it can be used for comparing or evaluating companies with low level of tangible assets, which is why it is a favorable ratio that is used in case of service based companies. It removes tax and interest which are actually unrelated to business performance. Next, it is a proxy for cash flow from operations. Next, it excludes depreciation and interest which is associated with asset and debt, and hence it is useful for managers who have no control over investment and financing policy. Next, it does not consider depreciation and amortization, and it is a way to analyze the current performance. It removes subjectivity that can go into the calculation of depreciation and amortization. Last, it is easier to access. But there are certain disadvantages to EBITDA as well. First and foremost, it involves window dressing as an excuse to poor performance in a loss making company. It does not take into account cash required to fund working capital or to replace or acquire assets. Next that we have is NPV and IRR. It is used for planning future projects. It is used for comparing actual results to planned. It focuses on future cash flows and risk, and it encourages longer term perspective. If we have a positive NPV, it means we are creating shareholder wealth, and if IRR is equal to the required rate of return, then NPV is 0. Hence, we know that if we want a good performance, then IRR must be greater than the cost of capital. So IRR, if it is greater than the cost of capital, then we have a good performance. Next we have modified IRR. We know that IRR assumes that the cash flows that we have, they are reinvested at the project's IRR over its life. This is known as the reinvestment assumption. But this is a weakness of IRR. The better assumption is that the cash flows are reinvested at the investor's minimum required rate of return, and MIRR assumes this. What happens in MIRR is we segregate the cash flows into two phases. One is the investment phase and then is the return phase. We divide the present value of cash flows of return phase divided by the present value of cash flows from investment phase, and we use to the power 1 by n. N is the life of project n years into 1 plus I. I is the cost of capital, and we subtract it with 1. The last topic that we have is advantages of modified IRR. First advantage is that it is quicker to calculate than IRR. Second, that it has a more realistic assumption. As we saw earlier, the reinvestment assumption, this MIR solves that problem. And the last is it does not give multiple answers like IRR. So this was all about this chapter. I hope you liked the video. Please do comment, share and subscribe the channel, and of course, thanks for watching.